read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I happened to see online, like through Goodreads and various comments, of people saying that one of the problems with Verne's works are that they're poorly translated. Now, this is the only version of this book I've ever read, so I have no basis of comparison for that. I don't know who translated it, or even for that matter, if it's unabridged or not, because it doesn't say anywhere in the book. But I can say that I did enjoy this version. I do like also the illustrations that are within it. I think they really suited the story. The only fault I found with the book is some paragraphs where it would just go on excessively about the Latin names of the various sea creatures they encountered. I found myself just kind of skimming past those to get back to the main story. We follow Monsieur Arnaud and his servant Council, and Ned Ladd, he's a Canadian harpoonist. And all three were aboard the Abraham Lincoln, and they were going after what they believed to be a giant sea creature that was attacking ships. Turned out, of course, it was the Nautilus, and they end up unwilling passengers aboard the Nautilus. There they meet Captain Nemo, a mysterious man who sort of guards his background from them. He doesn't say much about himself, and it's a strange crew as well because they seem to speak an odd language of their own making that no one can understand except the captain. The story is sort of made up of these little vignettes of stories, and one of those you might have seen in my previous video, An Odd Occurrence, with regards to an iceberg in here. That particular scene I found very harrowing, and I couldn't wait to find out how they were going to get out of that situation. But I was very captivated by the story. I think, in terms of whoever did translate this one, I think they did a good job. The writing flowed, and for a classic, it was very intriguing, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. I listened to the audio version of Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This wasn't quite the book I expected, but I still really enjoyed it. The story opens up in Canada with a stage production of King Lear. On stage, playing the lead is a man named Arthur Lansdale, and a young girl playing one of his daughters by the name of Kristen, and in the audience is a young man by the name of Jeevan. He was a paparazzi, now he's trained to be an EMT. Suddenly Arthur has a heart attack, massive heart attack. Jeevan rushes the stage to try and save him, but it is too late and Arthur dies. Right about that same time, a pandemic is breaking out. It's called the Georgian flu because it originated in Georgia, Russia. And literally within about 3 hours of coming in contact with someone with the disease, you're symptomatic, and within 48 hours, you're dead. So it is, just spreading rapidly and wiping out the population very badly. A friend of Jeevan's warns him to get out of the city as fast as possible, and he rushes to go be with his brother. Then after that little break, you jumped like 20 years in the future, and suddenly you're following this Shakespearean musical group as they're going from kind of little pockets of survivors, and they're performing and trying to keep some of the arts and the old ways alive. And there are connections and these little stories that you come in contact with various people, and you don't know the connections between them all until they kind of have flashbacks of these. So it's literally not told in a linear format. You are jumping back and forth kind of post-pandemic and pre-pandemic, and you're learning the lives of these characters and how they came to be where they are now and who they're connected with. That brings that whole story together. And I found it really well written and really engaging, and the characters, it's definitely a character-driven story. It focuses more on the connections they have than the pandemic itself, and I thought it was going to be more just that kind of survival story, just as the main part of it, and it wasn't. But like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else this author comes up with. So I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Fringe Runner, which is the first in the Fringe series by Rachel Aukus. I've already done a full review on this, and I'll put a link down below so you can go ahead and check it out. Next, I read The Circle by Dave Eggers. I posted a full review on this one, so I'll put a link down below. Love this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Next up, I read Under My Skin by Juno Dawson, formerly known as James Dawson, and also the author of Say Her Name, which I reviewed some time ago on my channel and really loved. This is a YA horror novel that deals with tattoos and possession. We follow a young high school student by the name of Sally Feather. She socially tries to stay under the radar. She really lacks self-confidence. Most of the time, she just kind of hangs out with her friends Dan and Jenny. They watch some TV show called Satanville. They're like total geeks about it. One day, Sally is running an errand for her mom across town, and she kind of goes through like a really seedy part of town and feels like she's being followed. And she ducks into this tattoo parlor that she comes across. And the manager of the tattoo parlor allows her to stay there until she feels safe to go. And as Sally's kind of just looking around, she happens to be drawn to this one tattoo of this young woman. The tattoo is called Molly Sue. And the manager actually convinces her to get the tattoo, even though Sally knows her parents will freak out about it. She's technically underage. She's 17, but in a year she'll be off to school and they really can't say anything anyway. So she gets a tattoo on her back, kind of keeps it covered up, and doesn't tell her parents about it. But shortly afterwards, she starts to hear a voice in her head. And it's actually Molly Sue talking to her. This tattoo is alive, somehow. It can actually even move on her body. But when anybody else is around, it's just dormant, just a tattoo, but they don't know about it because, of course, she keeps it hidden. Now, at first, of course, she's freaked out. Then there seems to be sort of a benevolent feel to it. Molly Sue seems to help her out, help her build her own confidence. She convinces her to kind of change her look, and people take notice, and she feels a little bit more self-assured about herself. And there's a couple instances where, she's kind of not knowing what to say in a situation, and Molly Sue kind of talks in her head and gives her suggestions, and she's feeling a little bit more self-confident. And everything seems really great about this. And then one day there's a real kind of tense situation Sally finds herself in. Molly Sue offers to sort of step in and take control, literally being able to move her body about and speak through her mind and everything. And Sally's so freaked out about the situation she's in, she allows her to do this. And now afterwards she sort of comes back into her own self, and everything seems to have worked out. She doesn't really know exactly what Molly Sue did, but things start to unfold and she finds out. Now, there's another situation later where now that she's sort of had access, Molly Sue seems to be able to take control of Sally. This is where things get really creepy in the book. It builds the tension of it. It has a feel like a psychological thriller / possession kind of novel. It gets more and more tense as the situation goes on, and you're really wondering, how the heck is Sally going to get out of the situation she's kind of put herself in with this tattoo? Anything she thinks, Molly knows. So it was really good. It held my attention throughout the thing. I think the characters were pretty well developed. I like the relationship she has with her two friends, and they're seeing kind of changes in their friend, not knowing what's going on, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I recommend you give it a shot. Okay, throughout the month of June, I read my way through the first 6 volumes of Zombie Alone by Peach Pit. It's a manga series. I'll just show you the individual volumes. I'm not going to give you my individual ratings on each one, because I don't really remember them off the top of my head, but they range from 3 to 5 stars. Overall, I enjoyed the series a lot. It features our main characters, or 3 main characters. I'm trying to find a picture. Here's a good picture. This is Chika and Chito, and the other one is a girl by the name of Michiro. And Michiro first meets Chika and Chito when they're like all students in the same school. She happens to see a black ring around the 2 boys' necks, and she knows that's something very serious. It means they may die, and she goes to warn them. The thing is, these 2 boys can't die because they're already dead. They work for a company called Z-Loan, and Michiro will eventually come to work for them too, but the 2 boys were involved in a bus accident, and the ferryman who sort of runs Z-Loan service brings them back to life. But it's a loan. They have to pay off this debt before they can kind of stay alive permanently. And the way they pay off the debt is by going after illegal zombies. Now, they're basically zombies themselves, but because an agency brought them back, it's legal. This is where it gets a little confusing with the series of what makes an illegal zombie an illegal zombie. So we basically follow these characters. There's lots of other side characters and people that work with the ferryman, and I like the rivalry between Chika and Chito. There's a lot of humor kind of involved as well. They bicker all the time. It's just crazy. Michiro is a little bit overly timid for me. A lot of her sentences are kind of choppy, and she stops mid-sentence and doesn't finish a thought. And it's a little frustrating. I'm hoping she'll toughen up as a character as the story goes on. Overall, I really like the artwork in it too. It has a lot of some nice, really full panels as well, and the paneling is really nice too. It's rather dynamic at times, and it adds to a lot of action. You can see a lot of the paneling here too. It's not just standard squares and everything. But the story's pretty interesting. As I've finished off volume 6 now, they've got a rival group called A-Lone, and they also go after zombies. So it's cutting into their ability to go after these illegal zombies. If both groups are going after it, they can't get the money if someone else has gotten there first, you might say. So they get paid every time they kill off a zombie, and that pays off their debt. So overall, I am enjoying the series, like I said. It's just a little confusing now because of this other group, and some of the characters are almost similar to the people from Z-Lone, but I've got a couple more volumes. I got 7, 8, and actually 10 I picked up at a used shop, so I have to pick up 9, and I can kind of continue from there. I'm not sure how many are in the series, but overall I am enjoying it. My last book this month was Bookman's Tale by Charlie Levitt. This is a tale of Peter, an antiquarian bookseller. As the book begins, he's still grieving over the loss of his wife Amanda several months earlier, and he's trying to follow the advice of a grief counselor, like meet new people, reconnect with old friends, reconnect with old interests. And for him, it's always been books. In fact, books are what brought he and Amanda together to begin with. They met at the special collections area of the library. So while perusing through some old books, he stumbles across a Victorian watercolor portrait of a woman that is the spitting image of his late wife, painted by some mysterious BB. So he begins this search to try and determine who this author is and who this woman is that happens to look like his wife. He's also asked to go visit an estate sale for some rare books to evaluate them and if he's interested in buying them. And one of the books is a book called The Pandasto by Robert Greene. And the interesting thing about this book is the writing along the margins appear to be those of William Shakespeare. And if this is true, if this is a real book and not a forgery, it will be definitive proof of the actual identity of William Shakespeare. So he also notices written in the front of the book are the names of the people who previously owned it. And one of those people happens to be someone by the name BB. So he becomes obsessed with this search of who this woman is, who this BB is, and the actual to authenticate this book and its origins. Did the actual William Shakespeare from Stratford-upon-Avon own that? If it is, it will prove once and for all the identity of the playwright. So we follow the story of Peter on this hunt through history. We also have another timeline that follows his first meeting with Amanda and their relationship as it develops till their eventual marriage and her eventual death at the end of the book. And there's a third timeline that follows the Elizabethan period where we meet Shakespeare and Robert Greene and these true historical figures. So it's part historical fiction that we're reading. It was a very entertaining book. For book lovers, I think you'll just be really captivated by the storyline and the descriptions of the rare books and the book binding and the care that goes into it. It's an interesting mystery involved here and also a very touching romance as well. I really enjoyed this overall. I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in that time period or anything about books. You'll get something out of it. I gave it 4 stars. Well guys, let me know if you like this vlog style of a wrap-up. If you do, I'll continue doing it. I think it's just a little bit easier to get my thoughts on camera right away. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.